what's going on out there, everybody? I hope you're all having a fantastic day out in your worlds. I got another early review for you guys. Today, we're talking about It Chapter 2 coming out to theaters this weekend. Andy Muschietti is back in the director's chair for this sequel. Gary Dauberman this time is penning the script on his own. You guys are probably familiar with this section of the story, but if not, it's set 20 years after the events of the first movie. The tormented kids of the Losers Club are now the mentally fractured adults of the Losers Club, all living lives in different cities, just trying to, in their own ways, move on and forget until they're called back to Derry when the same violent killings from their childhoods begin once again. The last movie from 2017 grossed over $700 million worldwide and was met with generally positive reviews. I actually enjoyed the new vision of the classic Stephen King novel and felt it was successfully able to infuse a new creative inspiration into the premise while at the same time kind of keeping the important beats of the original work in place. I was really ready and excited to see this sequel and to take the journey of the adult versions of these characters. I was ready to see more of Pennywise as well as some appealing horror moments, and despite some of this movie's problems, I gotta say it delivers on all of those things. The cast is fantastic. There's plenty of screen time given to the grown-up versions of these characters as well as to the younger versions that we remember from the last movie. Yes, the adult cast is much more the focus here, but for the needs of this story, I thought there was a nice balance. And surprisingly, while James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain are the headlining names, to me it was the performances of Hader and Ransone specifically that were the bright spots. I think overall, yes, everybody did a good job of really mirroring the personalities of the younger actors to create that needed seamless feel, one that to me was able to truly make them feel like the grown-up versions of these characters. Yet it was Ransone and Hader that were able to land not only great comical timing, but also just that same energy that Wolfhard and Grazer pulled off as their younger counterparts. In the last film, to me, Wolfhard and Grazer were the shining lights along with Sophia Lillis as young Beverly, and in this one, that same trait really carried over as Ransone and Hader were really the anchors for giving this movie that just charismatic charm that it had between all the killings. However, I gotta say, both McAvoy and Chastain were fantastic. I guess we possibly just kind of get spoiled from their acting skills when they can just deliver emotionally driven performances that completely sell me, but still feels like just a case of great performers performing, and it doesn't really leave as much of an impact because it's just kind of customary for them. But regardless, they and everybody else did a fantastic job for the needs of their characters. This is a story-driven movie and it explores the adult lives of the Losers Club, and with the cast, I think the variety and the emotional torment was just very effectively captured. I mean, this is a horror movie that lasts nearly 3 hours, but with a continual progression to the story and the lives of the characters as well, I gotta say it all still works. I mean, everybody's moved on and just faced the events of their childhood in different ways. It's very interesting to kind of see the effects that it's taken on them. The script really does take its time and layers in the detail, which does cause it to run long, but it also keeps the intrigue going, so it's kind of honestly hard to fault it too much. Plus, there are a ton of horror moments worked in between all the sections of the storytelling, and I got to admit that a large collection of them are very well crafted and work perfectly for not only the timing but the needs of the story. There was a creative visual appeal to many of them that built a lot of uneasiness because you don't really know what's going to happen or where it's going to happen from, and despite a story that went from past to present very many times throughout the story with many horror set pieces placed in between all that, it surprisingly never felt stale as time progressed. It was actually pretty cohesive. Skarsgård as Pennywise was phenomenal once again. The movie, I think, uses him much better than they did in the last film, and it doesn't rely on him for scares, which makes his appearances in the story that much more menacing. Plus, I like the way that he torments the adults much differently than he torments the children. And while not all the visual effects in this movie worked, many of them did. They were violent, they were sudden, different in their approach, and frequently unpredictable, which means success to me. I thought there was a good flow between all the different moving pieces. Everything really got its time without making the movie feel choppy. I also thought the direction and cinematography were incredible. Muschietti and just how he simply framed up many shots was able to just capture the emotional intensity of the characters on a routine basis. The foreboding uneasiness of the unassumingly ominous town of Derry is great. It just pulled me immediately back into the world of the story. It's just a beautifully shot film that was just very intimate in places, unrelenting in others, and pretty much everything else in between. This was a frightening horror film in many stretches that was also able to be genuinely heartfelt in others, and I thought the combination resulted in a great movie that caps off this story with all the layers of needed detail. But I gotta say, there were some problems with it. Like I mentioned, the runtime a couple times, it's a little bit on the excessive side. I think at 169 minutes, regardless of a storyline that showed and attention to detail, that it could have been trimmed back in places. I think by doing this, it would have kicked the pace up just a little bit, tightened up the second act, and cleaned up some of the not so good visual effects and some of the shorter set pieces. Much of this film has a very polished visual appeal, but there are a couple of scenes that just looked pretty dated given what the rest of the movie shows us, and with a tighter runtime, a couple of those scenes could have been removed and there still would have been plenty of other creepy sequences for us to enjoy. And overall, the length was just a major hindrance for me. I thought the story was very attention grabbing. It kept me intrigued from start to finish, but just had certain scenes been trimmed and removed, I think the pace still could have stayed more consistent while also being able to tell more story. Yet in the end, I still enjoyed myself and thought this movie was a good time. I really enjoyed what it created, and when paired with the first movie, I think this certainly has been a fantastic adaptation of King's novel. So from me, It Chapter 2 is going to get a solid 90% on the entertainment meter. The cast in this movie was huge. The list of to-dos was very long as well, and I think it certainly accomplished what it needed, and in my opinion, it's certainly worth watching on the big screen. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. I'd love to talk movies with you guys. Share it with your friends, and without question, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can never miss a video. Here are some links to some recent reviews just in case you missed them. All my social media links and the link to our official website are down in the description below, and I'll catch you next time.